In the long hush between the forging of the 9 realms and the final toll of the Great Horn, there arose a threat so brazen that even the ancient gods cast wary eyes upon it. Far to the icy north, in a land beyond mortal ken, there dwelled a monstrous wolf. Some said he was the child of a rime-coated spirit and a star-lit she-wolf. Others claimed he was born of shadows in a secret cave at the root of a frost-ridden mountain. Whatever his origin, his size defied reason fur, as pale as moonlight, fangs longer than daggers, and a growl that shuddered through stone. His name was Svendr, though over the ages he was granted many titles from frightened tongues: the White Maw, the Devourer of Frost, the Harbinger of Twilight. Svendr's domain was a tundra of eternal ice. Through silent nights and frozen days, he prowled the glacial flats. Hunting, he learned to stalk fear incarnate, for even in the depths of winter, living creatures trembled at the tremor of his paws. And though he preyed on reindeer and woodland beasts, his hunger ran deeper than flesh. Some primal longing awoke in him for dominance over all that was bright or warm. The mere glimmer of fire roused in him an urge both cunning and bestial, to snuff it out, as though flame itself were an affront to his existence. In time, rumour spread. There existed a flame that never went out, a flame that stood inviolate under the protection of the All-Father's sons. The flicker of such a fire kindled in Svendr a hunger for cosmic significance. The wolf brooded on it by his glacier throne. If this eternal flame were indeed unquenchable, devouring it would prove him mightiest of all creatures. Even beyond the watchful gaze of the gods, only one problem lay bare on the ice. Svendr could never approach that which burned so bright without some shield or alliance, for the mere possibility of its furious heat crushed the air in his lungs like a weight. An answer glimmered in his cunning mind. He recalled tales of frost spirits that haunted gullies and prowled beneath lake ice. Beings of intangible cold, they commanded the very essence of frost. If Svendr could woo them to his side, if he could harness their frigid might, perhaps their combined powers might smother even an undying flame. So he bounded across the tundra, howling at the stars and raking the swirling snows until his voice echoed over ridges and boreal forests. Yes, he would broker an alliance, and so he set out on the journey that would change the face of the realms. A fortnight into his travels, Svendr encountered a region where the glacier ice seemed to move, not with the swirl of wind, but of its own accord. Here crystals grew, columns as tall as towers, forming labyrinthine corridors that glittered with an uncanny shimmer. He prowled carefully, for this place was rumored to be home to the first clan of the frost spirits, the Hrimfar. He breathed in the bitter chill, calling in a deep growl. "Hail, keepers of ice! Does it come to pass that a wolf must freeze to be permitted your presence?" Silence answered him, but Svendr knew watchers lurked in every gust of air, so he turned in restless circles, pawing at the ground. Finally, the wind seemed to coalesce at the center of a long corridor. Frost-laced shapes began to swirl. Then emerged a figure both ethereal and solid, tall and gaunt, with skin the color of starlight on snow, wearing robes spun of rime. Silvery eyes peered at him. "Svendr of the White Maw," the spirit said, voice echoing like a breeze across an empty plain. "You come to the domain of the Hrimfar uninvited. Why?" The wolf raised his head, meeting the spirit's eyes. "To propose an alliance worthy of your icy power, Frostlord." Svendr replied, trying to disguise the edge of hunger in his voice. "I would devour an eternal flame, one that has challenged the freeze of time itself. I seek your magic to stifle its heat so that I may swallow it. Then I shall deliver all warmth into the jaws of winter." A hush fell over the corridor. Overhead, the shifting glints of light grew sharper, as though the very crystals of ice were prying into the wolf's mind. The Frost Lord's expression did not betray emotion, but the air grew colder still. Sven's ears twitched, but he stood firm. Finally, the spirit replied, "We have existed since the world's first frost. Your scheme is bold, perhaps impossible. Yet, like you, we cannot stand the sight of flame's defiance of the cold. If there exists a fire that truly cannot be extinguished, then we are drawn to see it smothered forever. Prove your worth. We shall guide you to one of our Forgeborn siblings, who can empower you with runes of ice. Only then will you be worthy to speak with the entire clan. Survive the Forgeborn's trial, and we shall accept your proposal." Before Sven could ask the nature of the trial, the spirit vanished in a swirl of sparkling flakes. The corridors of ice melted away into an endless snowscape. Yet, in the distance, a jagged mountain reared up, strangely black against the white horizon, as if hammered into existence by the collision of frost and earth. Instinct told Sven this was where he should go next. Sven found the mountain shrouded in gloom and beset by swirling winds at its base. Yet, at times, patches of black granite peeked between the gusts, revealing a path. Carefully, the wolf crept upward, ears attuned to every tremor. Sharp cracks rang out from within the ice-laden slopes. Ridges of stone jutted like black fangs from the side of the mountain. With each step, Sven guarded against a treacherous slip that would send him tumbling into oblivion. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Shadows lengthened and receded in cyclical patterns. At last, Sven discovered a cavern opening wreathed in ice, large enough to admit a beast of his girth. He entered, maneuvering past hanging icicles that glittered with a ghostly phosphorescence. The gloom parted around a vast chamber. At its center glowed a faint, eerie light, held aloft in a metal stand of swirling runes. This pale glow illuminated a figure hunched over an anvil shaped from frozen iron. The figure was tall, at least as large as a man, though leaner, nearly angular. A cloak of icy shards rippled about its form, and its hands glowed with frost so potent the stone floor beneath its feet was brittle as thin glass. Without turning, the figure's voice resonated through the cavern. "Greetings, Whitemoor. I am Drethari, Forgeborn of the Himfar clan. Only the truly desperate or truly ambitious come to challenge my domain. Which are you?" Svenja's hackles rose, but he kept his tone measured. "I am ambition incarnate," he said. "That which I seek is only possible with your clan's might. The Frost Lord told me I must survive your trial." Drethari turned slowly. In one spindly hand, the Forgeborn gripped a hammer carved from glacier ice, intricate runes etched into its surface. "If you seek to extinguish the unextinguishable, you first must demonstrate your worthiness. The Frost Lord would have me test your flesh against ice's fury and your spirit against an onslaught of illusions." The wolf snarled, but curiosity mingled with caution in the back of his mind. He had braved countless storms, stolen the breath of lesser foes, yet this trial felt different, an ordeal set by an ancient intelligence. Drethari led him to a part of the cavern where the floor dipped into a circular hollow. Along the rim were carvings of serpents wreathed in ice, each coil depicting symbols of binding, shackling, and release. The Forgeborn pointed with the hammer's head toward the hollow. "Descend," commanded Drethari, voice echoing with the cold resonance of Glacier's carving. "Touch the runes that line the walls. Their illusions will ensnare your mind. Resist, and you may return." Sven padded into the hollow. Runes glimmered with pale blue light, dancing shapes that seemed alive. As he reached the center, an invisible weight settled over him, and then the illusions began. The first was a scorching desert sun, so intense he felt his throat parched, his ears scorching, his breath coming in rasps. He let out a ragged pant, felt the dryness creep down his muzzle. But no, he reminded himself. This was a dream conjured by the runes, summoning his own sense of cold. He let the memory of glacier winds fill his thoughts, and the desert sun wavered and vanished. But the illusions continued. He saw the wave of fiery doom that once threatened to melt the glaciers. He saw the gods forging massive braziers to keep enemies at bay. He saw puny mortal men kindling small torches in a charcoal-scented darkness. Every spark of flame within those illusions threatened to sear him with revulsion and dread. He watched them flicker and felt the heat gnaw at his spirit. Yet each time, he banished the illusions by recalling his hatred for fire. He replaced each illusory blaze with an unwavering chill in his mind. Slowly, the illusions faded. When the last flicker of flame vanished, Svendor stood trembling. His breath came in ragged clouds that glowed ghostly in the cavern air. Zrathari lingered above, silent at the rim of the hollow. Then, with a single clap of the Forgeborn's frost-laden hands, the runes dimmed. Svendor saw that he was back in the frozen cavern, illusions banished. The wolf climbed from the hollow, pawing at the ice to steady himself. The Forgeborn regarded him thoughtfully. "You are resolute, wolf," they said. "Your hatred of flame tempers your mind. The Frost Lord's words ring true. You might indeed have the determination to see this plan through. Kneel, and I shall forge runes upon your spirit." Svendor bristled at being commanded to kneel, but he swallowed his pride. Lowering his bulk, he exposed his head and shoulders. Zrathari lifted the runic hammer and struck the wolf lightly upon the forehead. A searing jolt of cold coursed through Svendor's entire being. The bones in his body felt as if they'd turned to ice. The blood in his veins slowed to half its speed. But from that glacial torment was born a strange empower. He sensed the breath of winter at his beckoning, a swirling aura of cold that would protect him from scalding heat. He stood, shaking off the sensation. Hoarfrost crackled around his pores. Cold steam rose from his jaws each time he exhaled. Zrathari's voice echoed, "Now you bear the mark of frost. The flame you hunt will not scald you so easily. But heed me, the flame is alive. It will fight. You must feed these runes with unshakable will, or the flame will burn through them like tinder." With that final instruction, Zrathari extended a frost-laced arm, pointing to a hidden passage beyond the anvil. "Return to the Frost Lord. He awaits you." In the labyrinth of crystalline corridors, the wolf found the Frost Lord once more. This time, a circle of frost spirits surrounded their leader in a grand hall of mirrored ice. Each spirit shimmered with a cold luminescence. But the Frost Lord alone stood at the center, unflinching. Its words spilled out in a gust of an otherworldly wind. "You hold the runes. Forgeborn has branded you with ice. Our clan accepts your ambition. Tell us how you propose we capture this eternal flame." Svendor's eyes glowed with cunning. "I know of a mountain temple where the gods placed the flame for safekeeping. It is said to be warded by the children of the sun-winged watchers that let no mortal pass. But between me and them stands a fortress, built of stone and heated by the flame's power even at great distance. We must approach. I shall lure its guardians into open battle. While they are entangled, I will lead your frost magic to freeze the very heart of the flame. Then I shall devour it, swallowing its power and bending it to my will." A murmur rose among the spirits, swirling with a low hiss like a winter wind. The Frost Lord's crystal gaze surveyed the wolf. "Your plan's success depends on cunning and might. Should you fail, the clan's hush of cold will fade before the flame's wrath. We risk ourselves in this forging of alliances." Svanir lowered his muzzle, baring his teeth in something akin to a grin. "But imagine our triumph. If we succeed, the realms will know that not even an eternal flame can defy the domain of ice." Thus, a pact was struck. For 3 days, the Himfar clan marched alongside Svendor across the frozen tundra until they reached the foot of the mountain temple. Confronting them was a sheer rampart of stone that towered against the swirling skies, faintly warmed from within by unknown forces. High on the rampart's parapets, faint flickers of light teased the eyes, no doubt watchers on guard. The plan demanded stealth before the final pounce. Night descended, and the gloom on that mountainside was near absolute. Sven crouched behind a stony outcropping, frost spirits swirling around him in a silent blizzard. With a deep breath, he channeled the power in the runes placed by Drethari. Cold aura radiated outward, pressing the atmosphere with an arctic hush. Then, with a single leap, the wolf bounded into the open, letting his pale fur flash in the moonlight. Instantly, alarm bells rang from the fortress ramparts. Figures scurried above, too distant to see their forms clearly, but their voices soared on the night air. The moment these watchers launched glowing projectiles or arrows, the Hrimfar clan would respond. Indeed, brilliant bolts of flame soon arced from the walls, tracing lines of fire through the gloom. Svendr let out a roar, summoning a billowing swirl of ice-laced wind that swept upward. The frost spirits joined, forging an eddy of hail that smothered the flaming projectiles mid-flight. Confusion and shouts broke out among the watchers. Seizing advantage, Svendr sped forward, bounding up the slope toward the fortress gates. A swirl of frost spirits battered the portcullis, layering it in hoarfrost heavy enough that the iron squealed in protest. Then, with a thunderous lunge, Sven rammed the gate. The frozen metal cracked, giving way with a tortured groan. Inside the courtyard, the watchers awaited. Tall they were, clad in light but seemingly impervious to the cold. Each brandished a spear wreathed in crackling flames. Their eyes shone like embers. With inhuman speed they lunged at Sven. The wolf met them in a deadly dance, his jaws snapping at Sven, his gargantuan paws slamming the ground. Frost spirits swirled overhead, conjuring blades of ice that hurtled at the watchers, but each watcher's fiery aura melted the shards in mid-air. A standoff of elements raged, bright tongues of flame against coruscating arcs of ice. Svendr realized each moment he spent clashing with the watchers drained the rune's potency. The watchers did not tire as normal warriors might. The eternal flame's power fueled them. Gritting his will, he let out a booming howl. That was the signal for the Frost Lord to unleash a concentrated wave of glacial cold. In a sweeping gale, the Frost Lord channeled centuries of winter might. Sheets of ice rocketed across the courtyard, pressing upon the watchers' flames. Though their spears flickered defiantly, the watchers felt the creeping chill latch onto their limbs. One by one, the watchers slowed, and Svendr's fangs found them. He tore through their line, driving them back into the heart of the fortress. In the midst of the fray, a final gate rose, leading into a grand hall built deep into the mountainside. Torchlight flickered within, but that flicker was dwarfed by the glow of a single presence, the eternal flame, cradled upon a raised dais. The watchers fell back in desperation, forming a ring of defenders around the dais. There, upon a stone pedestal shaped like a gnarled tree trunk, burned a flame both blue and gold in hue, shifting in a mesmerizing dance. At its edges, the flame shimmered with an otherworldly incandescence, suggesting some living intelligence. Under the roiling battle, Svendr felt the runes upon his spirit resonate, surging with a brilliance that pulsed in his veins. He advanced toward the dais, leaving the watchers to the Hrimfar's onslaught. He neared the flame, his great muzzle low, hackles rising. Heat emanated from it, and for a heartbeat, the sheer fury of that heat made his limbs quake. But he summoned the memory of illusions he had dispelled, the echo of Drethari's forging. Rime coated his fur in a thick layer. He bared his teeth at the living flame and growled, "Your warmth ends here." The flame flickered as though answering with ancient scorn. Ribbons of light whipped out, scorching the air in serpentine coils. Svendr pounced, but the flame thrust outward. A scorching lash struck his flank and he howled. The runes flared to life, buffering the heat. Despite the protection, the searing light etched a raw pain across his hide. Still, he pressed forward, jaws wide. The dais crackled under the tension of opposing forces, frost from the wolf's aura, and an infernal heat from the flame. At this critical junction, the Frost Lord and three of the mightiest spirits soared into the hall on gusts of icy wind. Together they unleashed a swirling vortex around the flame. The swirling froze the air itself, forging a pale funnel that battered at the flame's edges. The Watchers tried to hurl themselves forward to protect it, but the rest of the frost spirits barred their path. Endless shards of ice hammered the Watchers' flames, locking them in a desperate delay. In the center of that freezing funnel, Svenda battered the dais with his paws, drawing closer to the heart of the flame. The swirling winds threatened to blind him with ice and sleet, but they also weakened the flame by siphoning away its radiant energy. Gritting his teeth, Svenda summoned the last reserves of his will. The runes across his body crackled as if raw thunder coursed within them. Then he lunged. His jaws closed around the blaze. Instantly, pain like molten iron seared the inside of his maw. The flame struggled, sending sparks down Svendra's throat like living embers raining upon his gut. He felt his fur singe, even as frost-laced power soothed him. Inch by inch, he wrenched the flame from the dais, devouring its writhing tendrils. A roar of triumph mingled with agony as he forced the last of the fire into his gullet. Shadows veiled his vision, but after several heartbeats, the glow of that unearthly light vanished from the pedestal. In the hush that followed, the Watchers cried out in horror. Their connection to the flame severed in an instant. The flicker in their eyes dimmed, their spears gutted. The last glowing embers dying to ash, they faltered, and the frost spirits overcame them with ease, shackling them in chains of ice. Svenda stood upon the shattered dais, steaming from muzzle to tail, as if he were an incandescent ember couched in a bed of ash. The runes glowed fiercely, not with pure cold, but with a buried, subdued warmth. His entire chest felt aflame, yet cooled by the Frost Lord's crafting. The eternal flame now resided inside him, swirling with feral discontent. For an instant, he thought it might tear him asunder from within, yet the runes sealed it in place, forging equilibrium. Ice and flame locked in a stalemate at his heart. The gathered frost spirits stared in awe. Some knelt, as if witnessing a new incarnate power. The Frost Lord stepped forward, gaze reflecting the faint glow in Svenda's eyes. "You have done it, great wolf," the spirit whispered, voice tinged with shock. "You have torn from creation a power that was said to be undying, unstoppable. Now you contain it." "Oh, bonjour," Svenda's chest heaved, steam curling from his muzzle as he tried to speak. "It will obey me, or it will burn me to cinders," the Frost Lord nodded grimly. "Keep vigil over the flame inside you. Should the runes falter, its wrath will consume everything you know. May your will be strong enough." The spirit turned to the rest of the clan. "We have removed the one source of eternal warmth. Now the grip of cold will stretch across all corners of the realm." A low hiss of approval echoed among the Hrimfar. They vanished into the night, storm winds carrying them toward the distant corners of the world, eager to spread a far-reaching winter. Alone among the ruins of the fortress, Svenda surveyed the battered Watchers, who lay subdued beneath sheets of hoarfrost, their eyes vacant. The dais no longer glowed. The halls were bleak. A hush settled in the mountain temple, where once an immortal flame danced. Snow drifted in through shattered gates, ash flakes mingling with ice crystals. At last, the giant wolf turned and padded through the broken gates into the silent night, each imprint of his paws sizzling faintly where the suppressed flame still burned within him. Yet the runes glimmered, and in that faint shimmer, one could sense his fierce delight. He had devoured the unquenchable flame. The bitterness of ice had proven stronger than the arrogance of fire. Over the following days, the skies darkened with untimely storms. Even the faintest pockets of warmth in the mountains fled or were snuffed out. Word of the flame's disappearance spread, stirring panic in the mortal lands. Hunters told tales of a colossal wolf prowling by day and night, his breath a swirl of frost that smothered hearth-fires in caverns and lodges. Some said they glimpsed an eerie glow in his eyes, as if something wild and fiery tried to escape, only to be forced back beneath a slurry of ice. Those who encountered him told of an overwhelming sense of dread, for they could not tell which force they feared more, the savage teeth of the beast or the flames caged within his chest. Whispers found their way to the ears of the gods. Their wrath took shape in the forging of new weapons, new guardians, new wards against the monstrous wolf who dared to claim an eternal flame. But even the gods, gazing from their lofty halls, recognized that the lethal alliance of Svenra and the Hremfar had shifted a balance they believed irrevocable. Fire itself could perish beneath the jaws of winter if one dared to harness such extremes. Svenra, for his part, travelled ceaselessly, the hush of a deep freeze following him. His fur carried an icy sheen, but sometimes when the moonlight caught his eyes, one might see the flicker of gold and blue. A swirl of warmth glimmered momentarily, then frost reasserted itself, containing the fire's rebellious flare. In those moments, the watchers who survived would recall how monstrous and terrible it felt to see that contradiction made flesh. A beast of winter shackling a living sun in his belly, and so the tale took root in the sagas of wind-blown skulls. They spun stories of Svenda, the White Moor, forging a pact with the frost spirits to devour a flame said to be immortal. It stands as a lesson, they whispered over mead hall fires that flickered nervously, that even the brightest blaze can be quelled by cunning and unrelenting cold. Jarls would look upon their hearths with renewed dread, ignoring the prickle of ice crawling over their shoulders whenever thunderheads gathered in the distance. Yet the everlasting question remains, can Svendra truly hold that flame forever, or will one surge of rebellious fire consume him and everything he has conquered? The hush of the north offers no answer. The wind, whipping across barren ice fields, only utters the same ghostly echoes, punctuated by the prowling footsteps of a colossal wolf, whose heart is an icy prison for an eternal blaze. And while winter reigns, the realms wait to see if that prison can endure, or if one day flame shall burst out unbound, scorching the mountains and melting glaciers in its fury. Until that day, every flicker of fiery light in the north dims with apprehension, for in a land bound by frost, the mightiest heat has been swallowed, locked behind the glassy eyes of a wolf who became the living boundary between fire's brilliance and the cold hunger of the void.